beast, is in the history of detective fiction, very often the investigator has been a solitary figure, divorced or a bachelor. And we know why that was, because you didn't have all those messy involvements that they might have. You go in the other direction. You are writing about a working mother, which she'd just come back to work after the birth of her children. And that is, it's a really unexplored theme, that, I think, isn't it?
It is, and it's really kind of fascinating to write about, because it's something not just in detective fiction, but actually the whole business of being at your work and not really caring that much. It's a totally unexplored landscape, and it's very interesting. And actually, it's not gender specific anymore, because dads are so involved with their kids now. That thing of having your mind on something else but having to go to work, that's a very common experience now, and I really don't see it written about. And it's a really interesting kind of landscape.
When I interviewed you on stage, when you got the award, you mentioned something else which astonished me. I said that I thought it's an amazing time for Scottish writers, because you've got the whole subject of independence and the impending referendum. But you said that, in fact, that has become an undiscussable subject.
It really has, and people are not discussing the notion of a nation state or the concepts of democracy or democratic deficits. We're not talking about the big concepts, and the debate has become quite polarised, and it's quite bad manners to bring up the referendum in case the person you're talking to disagrees with you. And if they say anything, if someone goes off on a rant about their position, it's quite rude to say, well, no, I don't agree with you. And this could have been a real intellectual awakening moment in Scotland, where we actually discussed the notion of the EU. We discussed things like, education, social care. What does autonomy mean? Nobody's talking about that. And it's such a missed opportunity in intellectual terms.
Alex Salmond, the First Minister, has said that William McIlvanney, the Scottish crime writer, would be his choice to write the constitution for an independent Scotland. But is there a lot of jockeying to try to get writers to become involved and take sides in the campaign?
Well, politicians are sharks, and they always try and co-opt everything anyone's ever done. That's why writers, William McIlvanney turned down an OBE, I think, umpteen times. And writers should always be very wary about having their work co-opted. The arts are about asking open questions, not about asking closed questions.
One of the things that always comes up at this festival every year is plots are crucial to crime fiction. You can, in what is loosely called literary fiction or non-crime fiction, you can get away without having a plot, and some people try that, but you have to have them. Do you find plots easy?
I do, actually. I think the structure of crime fiction is... plot is all important, because you have an inciting incident at the beginning, and in the perfect parabola it ties up at the end. So you can hang a lot of very complex things on that. And I think the promise of crime fiction to the reader is that you are going to have a compelling narrative, and that there will be some sort of resolution. I find it harder to be more playful with plot, but having written comics, actually, I think you learn to trust the reader much, much more, with very, more open narratives. And I think readers really appreciate that, because crime readers are greedy readers, and they read so much, and they're so familiar with all these tidy finishes. They want to be wrong steps, and they want to be confused and then have things resolved. They don't want it to be that tidy, I think.
Denise Minor, her award-winning novel Gods and Beasts is available now as paperback and ebook. This and previous editions of Front Row are available as downloads through the BBC Radio 4 website. The writer-director Noah Baumbach, my next guest, first stood out among the younger generation of American filmmakers with The Squid and the Whale, his 2005 semi-autobiographical movie about the effects of divorce on the children of an intellectual New York couple. Winning an Oscar nomination for that script gave Baumbach the clout to cast Nicole Kidman in Margot the Wedding, and then Ben Stiller as a man with psychiatric problems in Greenberg. Baumbach's latest film is Frances Ha, a contemporary piece, though filmed in black and white, about a young dancer who must find somewhere new to live after her flatmate emigrates.
It's sort of like how they say that other dimensions exist all around us, but we don't have the ability to perceive them. That's what I want out of a relationship. Or just life, I guess. Love. I sound stoned. I'm not stoned.
A scene from Frances Ha with the title character played by Greta Gerwig, who also co-wrote the script with director Noah Baumbach. My conversation with him started with the decision not to make the film in colour.
People have said to me, oh, because it's in black and white, they forget it's present day. But I always felt like part of the reason I shot it in black and white because I felt like the story and the milieu was so contemporary that it would both enhance the modernity of it and also make it nostalgic. It'd be like old and new at the same time.
Now, that thing about not knowing when it's set is, in fact, it becomes very clear because very early on, I mean, I thought at first, is this a flashback? Is this set in the past? And then right in the centre of the shot, you see a laptop, which is clearly a very, very modern laptop. So you get, again, that the shock, really, of seeing a laptop in black and white.
Yeah, and the laptop looks so much more beautiful in black and white. Yeah.
And it is, as you will realise, there's a dislocation for the audience because you first think something has gone wrong with the print, unless you know, or if you're watching on DVD, you start fiddling with the. But that's one of the things that you want to happen. It just we start off slightly uncertain.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, and when I first showed this movie at the Telluride Film Festival in the States last fall, one of the audio tracks wasn't working, so the movie started and there was music and there was image, but there was no dialogue track, so it was not only in black and white, but it was also silent. That wasn't it.
And the conceit in Frances Ha of it being chaptered through different addresses, was that there from the start?
That came not at the very start, but it came fairly early in the writing process, and it was a big breakthrough in the script writing because it helped. First of all, it created a kind of structure that I thought felt right for the movie, but it also informed a lot of what was written after that too. It helped even inform the character because you're thinking, well, who's this person who keeps moving places? And that helped us broaden and expand the Frances character.
It's always seemed to me in your films, right back to The Squid and the Whale, the tone of the dialogue is crucial because often it's apparently contrary to the way the line is written. So, there's an example in Frances Ha where the line, "This hasn't been good for a while," is said by one character, repeated by another, and then half repeated, and all three intonations are different. But are you one of those writers, like George Bernard Shaw used to have massive brackets saying first ironically and then cheerfully and then so on. Do you do a lot of tone directions, or do you just leave it for when you're directing?
I used to do way more of them. I mean, I would really kind of write how I heard the line in brackets.
Wily, angrily.
Yeah. And I do some of it still, but I do less of it because I don't want the actor to be like trying for something before they've had a chance to find it themselves. And the hope is they come at it wryly and angrily on their own. But I tend to hear the line a certain way in my head, and